Welcome to Draft Sickos on the No Ceilings NBA YouTube channel and podcast feed. This is the show where we discuss everybody from the biggest of names to the deepest of sleepers. I'm your host, Maxwell Baumbach, and I'm joined, as always, by the real star of the show, Stephen Gillespie. Stephen, how are you doing today?
Maxwell, I'm fired up. I'm so excited. We are taking a break from the mundane kind of churn of just focusing on prospects of this draft class. We have a fun show lined up for today. I have been running all over my house like a crazy person right before the show. So my adrenaline, I'm fired up, dude. I'm ready to go. How's everything on your end?
I'm in the same boat. We've been talking, privately about portal stuff a lot. And I think this was a show that you had mentioned doing, and it was one that I feel like the portal madness is starting to slow down a little bit. So we've got some decisiveness. We know where a lot of the big names are going. And it's a fun little departure from the current mold that everybody's kind of focused on. And I also think it's fun to just like look forward. You texted me the other day that like, hey, Bartorvik updated like for 2025, 2026 projections. And I was over there so fast. It was like a life-changing text. But that's a wrap with things. So I'm really excited. I know you're excited. Let's get right into it. We're going to start off with, we kind of each picked three guys we wanted to focus on. Maybe we'll do some lightning round stuff at the end too, if you want. The guy that we're going to talk about first is a player who we sort of sneakily brought up for a moment during the Portsmouth pod, and that is Carter Welling. One of my picks here.
Yeah.
A guy who started at Utah Valley. He was there for 2 years, 6'10", 225, sort of a stretch big. 13.1 points per game last season, shot 47.8% from the field and 35.3% from three. Very picturesque jump shot on Carter Welling. The volume was good too, getting those official numbers pulled up right now. So he also took 2.7 a game, which is nothing to sneeze at with a guy that's that big. But also 6.3 rebounds, 1.4 assists to 2.2 turnovers, but also averaged 1.8 blocks and 0.6 steals. So a little bit more defensive juice than you're used to out of a standard stretch big. I'm in love with Carter Welling, and this is a move that I like. I love him going to Clemson, where they are
so pretty.
Very comfortable with this kind of player. So I'm gonna kick it over to you first, because this was a fit that there was a couple that we like mutually agreed upon. We're like, we got to get this guy in there, and this is one of them. So Carter Welling, a deep cut name, and we've got some big names coming down the pike. So if you're like, is this all going to be Sicko guys? We got some big names.
Yes,
Sicko guys. It's a fun mix. But Carter Welling is a deep cut name that both you and I are fond of. What are you liking about the Carter Welling Utah Valley to Clemson move?
I mean, it's so clean, Maxwell. Just kind of spoiler alert. We talk about this normally at the end of the show, but I'm working on a piece right now that is focused on Viktor Lakhin. And I knew that I was going to work on that piece. And then separately, I knew that you and I were going to do this prospect portal pod, right? As I'm watching Viktor Lakhin film, like getting into the nitty gritty for this piece, I just had a random flash in my head. It's like, I could see Carter Welling running all of these sets. Like Clemson does so many Spain sets, so many rubs and DHOs that are just so NBA-esque. I think that it's a very NBA-friendly system, especially if you're one of these kind of like malleable, versatile big men who Carter is not the biggest of big men, but I think that he's kind of like, imagine for the listeners out there, imagine a player of similar dimensions as to like what you're seeing with Derek Queen at Maryland. I think that you're going to kind of see a similar build to a Carter Welling. Now, he's got good size. He moves better than I think people would anticipate. Kind of
well. Yeah.
Similar. I mean, he puts the well in Welling, right? It's kind of similar to what I've been watching with Viktor Lakhin on film recently. He does have a similar block percentage to that of Kaman Malawach, who recently like flat out declared for the NBA draft. So if you're high on Malawach, you might be high on Welling. Shows a great aptitude for rebounding on both sides of the ball. Has shown some improvement on his three-pointer, right? Like the free throw percentage this year actually went down from where it was the year before, but I do believe in the touch. He did not take a lot of long twos, so it's a very NBA-friendly shot diet. Everything is kind of like rim or three, dunks or threes, right? Had a high free throw rate of 53.4, but the finishing numbers are a little vanilla. So if everyone's kind of looking at him and wondering, well, if he's so great, why is he not in the draft this year? there's some projection. There are some building blocks that he kind of has to work on, a la Victor Locken, right? I think the big concern for me, Maxwell, is kind of like this positional forecasting where
yes,
the 4, is he a good enough mover to defend out in space regularly? If he's a 5, is he strong enough to kind of halfway challenge and contest some of these bigger men in the paint? And I think Clemson's going to be a great school because of the conference that they're in to kind of put that to the test. And I just think we've kind of been talking about it, but if you look at the last, I would say like 3 to 4 years of what Clemson has shown that they want to do with their front court players, Carter Welling is kind of tailor-made to fit in that offense. That's why I'm so high on him, Maxwell. I just think that this is going to be a hand-in-glove fit. I think that he's going to have the ability to show his strengths and really kind of polish the cannonball, so to speak, on his weaknesses.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm very intrigued to see like who wins the sort of positional battles on this roster. So if we're just looking at the roster, you've got Nick Davidson, who's sort of like a slow-footed, skilled 4, like closer to an Ian Shefflin type. And then you've got
a good way to put that.
Jake Whalen, who's coming over from Utah, who is like more of a pure jump shooting big man. Like the defensive stuff in athletic stuff, I would say is worse than it is with Welling, but he's a bit better of a decision maker. Where with Welling, there's sort of this like you said, like there's just a lot of stuff where it's like, if this gets like 10 to 20% better, it gets really interesting. I think what's most intriguing to me is just the combination of the jump shot and the athleticism. Where like when he gets downhill, like he can actually attack a closeout in a way that a lot of other bigger players aren't able to. Like he gets low, explosive first step, really good bounce off of 1 foot, takes long strides to the rim, like all the stuff that you want to see out of a tall shooter that gets run off the line, like he's capable of doing. Absolutely. But again, it's just like we mentioned, there's all these like little like, okay, but where it's like, okay, but he's not that strong. Okay, but he gets knocked off his line a lot. Okay, but like he doesn't read the floor as well on the go. He can make some really nice passes out of like standstill, even like short roll and like pocket passes to cutters from the baseline. Like there's all sorts of passes that he can make, but there's also ones that he can't or that he shouldn't. And there's some physicality issues, but he likes the smoke, which I like. Like you mentioned, the high free throw rate, like he is physical. But yeah, I don't think he's a 5, especially at the NBA level, given just like where the rebounding numbers were at a lower conference level. And I would also say just based on like a listed 6'10" height, where like if he's really closer to 6'8", like then it gets really dicey given the strength stuff. But I think he's one of those guys who could be really interesting against a too big lineup as like a 4 and that type of lineup because of the rim protection, because of the bounce. Like this dude really gets off the floor is like what I really want to harp on. And like, that's why like the first time we brought him up was sort of in relation to Brandon Carlson, because if he just turns into that type of shooter, like I think he's an eminently playable guy because there aren't guys that are that big that shoot that well and have like any semblance of bounce. And I think like even without the connective tissue, like this is a guy who could get onto an NBA floor at some point, so long as like the shot gets up to par. And if any of those like little things in between, come along, then he's in a position where he's a guy that you talk about getting drafted instead of a guy that we talk about as like an undrafted free agent value play.
Exactly. And I think what you're looking at in the NBA now, I think, with the time in basketball history, at this moment in basketball history where Carter Welling is coming into the NBA, it's actually kind of nice for him to not necessarily have like this set in stone positional projection, because a lot of NBA teams now, we're even seeing in the playoffs where I was listening to Ron Russillo the other day, and he's like, it's funny, they call it a double big lineup now. When I was growing up, it was called a power forward and a center, like,
yeah.
And I was just like, oh, what an eloquent way to put that, because we call it double big, but really it's just the positions that we've always kind of had, or at least we used to have, so to speak. But I think Carter it lends itself well, because if you can shoot at his size, you can play with a traditional center and he can kind of cover up any sort of mistakes that you would otherwise have. If he's playing with another power forward, then you can get into these more conventional 5-out techniques and lineups, and he has shown the ability to make defenses pay with his playmaking. I would like to see that grow, kind of similar to what we've seen from Victor Larkin. We've seen increased feel with this specific coaching staff with a lot of other front court players too. I mean, we've seen Tyson come through this program, Ian
PJ
Shefflin,
Hall, the way like PJ Hall developed as a passer over the years there.
Yeah, I mean, I really trust this staff to take this ball of clay and get the most out of it. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at Carter Welling within the same vein as somewhere between that PJ Hall to Victor Larkin. Both of those guys, I think, are NBA players. But to the point that you brought up earlier, Maxwell, it's do you draft them? Do you not? Obviously, we still got a little bit of time before we have to get to that answer.
Sure.
But the fact that we're even to that point with the transfer up from a smaller conference, it gives me a lot more confidence in his projection.
Yeah, and I think and like we'll talk about this a little bit as we go through the podcast. But I just think like school choice is so important, and I understand the financial realities. Like I understand for a lot of guys, like making the most money possible right this second means a lot. But I also think like we just know that there are schools that are better at developing certain skill sets and certain types of players. And if you want to think about your career long term, like you got to make sure that you're going somewhere that's going to value that your agent is working to put you in that position and things like that. I think whoever handled the Carter Welling situation, I don't know what his situation was, whoever handled that, great job. Like 2 thumbs up. Like that was a really good fit. And then that brings us to our next guy, who is another sort of mutually agreed upon player, Alvaro Fulggeras. We'll let you kind of take lead on this one since he's technically yours. Moving from Robert Morris to Iowa. What have you got on Fulggeras? It's become a hot name. Like I think this dude's going to be on draft boards to start the year at this point.
It'd be silly to not to. Like, I mean, I was looking at him at the middle of this scouting cycle. Like, this guy has some juice, and I know that other people like Rafael Barlow, another really good scout out there, is putting people onto him. I brought him up for the March Madness tournament for their first round matchup. But, I mean, you're talking about a guy who's going to be going into his third year, transferring from Robert Morris to Iowa, playing for Coach Ben McCollum, might have the potential to play with Bennett Sturtz, which I think that should be brought up.
And it sounds like Sturtz is not testing at all. So they will, like, 100% be playing together.
Oh, well, then that's beautiful, and I'll tell you why. I'll get to that part here in just a second. And then just real quick, Maxwell, if I can divert, Jay Gyro in the chat, shout out to everybody who's listening. We don't have to go through this list of names, but Jay Gyro's in the chat and he's wanting to know the status on people committing or not. Rookie Scale. Go to rookiescale.com.
Yep.
They will tell you who's testing, who's 100% committing, players that are transferring, all that stuff. It's a very great resource. Anybody check that out. They do a lot of great work there. Back to Alvaro Fulggeras. I was a big fan of him throughout the season. At the beginning or in the tournament this year, he dropped 15-10 against Alabama. I would say one of his bigger non-conference games to start the year was his very first game, actually, was against West Virginia. He had 0 points, which is not a great endorsement, but he did have 10 boards, 2 steals, and a block. So if you're going to evaluate a player seemingly at their worst game, he still did a lot of things to contribute. But there's just a lot to love about him. Great size and skill, great blend of that. He's listed at about 6'9", 215 pounds, ranked in the 91st percentile in scoring on offense at 1.095 points per possession. He was in the 88th percentile on catch and shoot jumpers, just under 49% Maxwell when left open on over 40 attempts, which was phenomenal. And that plays well on tape. He was in the 86th percentile at the rim, which accounted for 52% of his total shots altogether. So you're looking at a guy who can get to the rim consistently and can finish at a high clip at 6'9". He can also spread the floor for you as well. Did not do a lot of operation as a pick and roll ball handler, but as the roll man, Maxwell, he ranked in the 78th percentile as the roll man. Why that's cool is because he's going to be playing with Bennett Sturtz, who as a playmaker out of the pick and roll ranked in the 87th percentile. So you're looking at a duo now playing underneath Ben McCollum, who might be one of the most imaginative offensive creators in all of college basketball, working with 2 guys who are just going to play off of each other beautifully. I think the defense is going to surprise people a bit more than what they might be anticipating. You're looking at a guy who at Robert Morris had a 4.2 block percentage, 2.8 steals percentage, rebounds well, just gets the most out of every tool that, he has been blessed with. If we're going to give a tip to the cap of people advising players of where to go, I think Carter Welling is great. I think Alvaro Fulggeras playing alongside Bennett Sturts, playing underneath Coach McCollum is just like chef's kiss. It's just, It's going to be so much fun to watch them.
Yeah, I absolutely love this fit. And I think, like you mentioned, just finding opportunity, being with a coach who wins everywhere he goes. So, like if I go to Iowa, I'm going to play alongside Bennett Sturts. So I'm going to have another like legit NBA prospect on my team, which guarantees scouts will be at my games in person, in our practices, all that jazz. Love that element of it. Love the element of going to a team that will be competitive. Like I know it's a big step up and that they've not had a ton of big name transfers outside of this. But you are basically putting yourself into a big offensive role here. This is a team like I feel like the big Achilles heel of Drake last year was they get into these games where outside of Bennett Sturts, and Bennett Sturts is an unbelievable creator, obviously.
Yes.
But they just really lacked other guys who could create anything. Like if you look at their team, the guy who was second in assists was Isaiah Jackson, who played like 20 minutes a game, can't shoot at all. Like they just did not have another straw that could stir the drink. And with Fulggeras, like now you put Sturts in a position where like he's because he's white, of course, a sneaky athlete who registered a decent amount of dunks. Like you can like run actions where you're setting him up for lobs more often. Like there's just all sorts of creative things you can get into with Fulggeras out there. I'm really with you on the defense too. I think that's like a really underrated element of his game. He's one of those guys who's not the most traditional like run jump athletic dudes, but he is very big and very fluid. And the other thing I like about this fit too is that they sneaky got Brendan Housen in the portal, who's just like a dead eye shooter. So you're going to have all sorts of space. You're going to have all sorts of pace. You're going to have passing. You're going to be able to go up tempo. You're going to be able to slow it down. Like whatever this team wants to do, they're going to be able to do it. And Fulggeras is just such a great wrinkle in that system. I just think he did himself so many favors because it gets him in a high major environment alongside another prospect where there's going to be eyes on him all the time. But from a basketball standpoint, it's a system that rewards intelligence. It rewards shooting. And it rewards the ability to just see things on the fly and as they develop and make multiple reads. And those are all things that we know he can do. So I think he just put himself in prime position heading into next season.
And if you look at what Robert Morris asked him to do, there was a few other players on that team, but by and large, like he was heavily leaned on. And what happens when a player who is of his measurables, again, listed at 6'9", we'll see what that ends up actually being.
Sure.
You're going to be playing in kind of untraditional, unconventional ways. Whereas now playing at Iowa, bringing in the type of players that in Iowa, and especially Coach McCollum, like anybody who wants to make money and potentially get drafted, go play with Coach McCollum. Like he's such an imaginative creator. He's going to give him so much space. I could see him running flex cuts. I can see him running these double drag sets. There's so many things, screen the screener type actions, like these little circle rubs that college basketball is starting. Like you can just do so many things with a player like this who can score at every possible spot on the court. And then again, his defense is going to be used in a way where he can help more as opposed to kind of have to be a pseudo anchor at times, which he's shown that he can do. So you can get real imaginative with lineups, with, positional use and stuff like that. I just think that this is a home run hit. I would be hard pressed to find very many other people that are returning right now, Maxwell, that I would comfortably put ahead of Alvaro Fulggeras. And he's got international style of play too. Like we've seen him succeed in different environments. So if he does well at Iowa, then he might be a first round guy for me starting the year, to be perfectly honest.
He will be. Yeah, I have a lot of work I need to do on the incoming guys. And obviously we have a lot more guys returning than normal, but I'm getting that same vibe over here as well. We're going to throw it to a quick break. On the other side, we're going to be talking about Henry Visar and Quinton Jones. So stick with us. We will be right back. All right, let's talk about Henry Visar, who left Arizona and will now be at North Carolina. And let's talk about why I like it so much. So Visar is 7 feet tall, really solid, productive year after he played at Arizona as a freshman, had a redshirt year, and then came back this year. 9.4 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, 1.3 steals to 1.1 turnovers, 1.1 blocks to and 0.7 steals. Shot just under 60% from the field, took a little over 3 per game, and made 32.7% of those. I think Visar was like a much better prospect than Krivas last year on Arizona. Yeah. Like coming to the year, everyone was all about Krivas. And like every year there are a couple guys that I feel like end up really high on boards where I'm just like, I don't like, maybe the intel's really good, but I've not seen anything on tape that validates that for me. And like, that was where I was at with Krivas coming into the year. And I thought Visar like ate his lunch. I know Krivas had injury issues and whatever, but if like, they're going to pick Krivas, like, yeah, get out of there. I think you made the right choice on getting out, just so that you're not in a position where you're splitting minutes at all. But he also went to the one team that had like 0 centers last season, which I think is going to be very advantageous for him. So now he's going to be in a situation where is Drake Powell all in or is he testing?
I believe he's all in. I think he like outright declared.
So you're going to have like Seth Trimble. So you still got like a classic point guard there. You're going to get Caleb Wilson, who's like a 4-man into the mix. Jaron Stevenson, who's like not a traditional 5. A couple incoming freshmen. But basically like the front court has been open here. And we saw from the Armando Bacot days, like they are more than comfortable to let a big man go to work under this coaching regime. But I really think the biggest thing for me is we're just getting Visar in a situation where he's going to be at North Carolina. He's going to be the man. There's going to be no minutes crunch. He's going to get to play, and probably they're going to play through him, especially with the Drake Powell situation where if he goes, like, I think Visar is just straight up your best player who is on this roster. That's a returning college player. Again, can't really speak to the freshman too much, but what I like so much about Visar, I just want to harp on him as a prospect in general. Yeah. I think he's another one of those guys that's just like really close, moves really well for his size, can block shots, but still fluid out on the perimeter. I really trust him as a passer. The jump shot is close. He needs to get stronger. Like the defensive rebounding numbers are bad. And it is a function of like, he's just too easy to knock around. A little more dogging wouldn't hurt, but I think a lot of it's just like the physical strength. Cause like he does a good job on the offensive glass in terms of like timing and things like that. But I think he's so close to being what this game values and like a skilled modern 5-man who can like play in a couple different defensive concepts and then also play in multiple concepts offensively, whether you want to just use him as like a roller and a lob target, or whether you want to use him as a guy that's more out on the perimeter and making decisions. Like it's all very close. And I think going to a school like North Carolina, where he's going to have the leash, the attention, everything like that, and not have to worry about another similar prospect, not getting confused for the other big European dude. This is the move. It was time to get out if that was going to be the situation, and go to a school where you get to play under bright lights.
Yeah, so while you were giving that breakdown, I did go to rookiescale.com, did verify that they do have Drake Powell 100% committed in. So there is that.
Perfect.
So yeah, Henry Visar, huge human being, just felt like he was just another piece in the Arizona lineup. They just play so many people. So kind of my thoughts are exactly lined up with yours. Again, another player, if you look on Bar Torvik, his numbers aren't all that different from Kamal Malawach this year, with a smaller role and a fewer minutes percentage as well. So what really stands out to me about Visar is that he can do inside outside. And I think that's obviously growing up European style play, you have every position's got a play make. And I think that lends itself well to what we've seen from Visar. What I like about the pairing with him and UNC is that we've seen them kind of similar to what we were talking about with Carter Welling at Clemson. UNC has had success with these like skilled bigs before, talking about guys like Brady Manick, Pete Nance, Harrison Ingram, another guy, just some recent examples of front court players that do have a little bit of skill to go along with their kind of overall game as well. Last year at Arizona, he spent most of his time as the roll man. He ranked in the 98th percentile of players spending their time as the roll man. So heavily used. He ranked in the 64th percentile, though, actually scoring within those sets. So you're looking at a guy predominantly as a roll man in a weird system where he's kind of in and out all the time, still showing a very reliable skill set in that regard. 96th percentile on putbacks. That speaks to what you were just talking about earlier with that crashing of the offensive glass. Again, the knock that you commonly see with European big men is that they're not necessarily the the most rabid of dogs. So yeah, you would definitely want to see him do that as well. He did rank in the 66th percentile in spot ups and shot 43.5% on spot ups 3. So Coach Davis has a unique opportunity no matter what guards are he's using in his system. Usually that's a 3-guard rotation that he likes to run. Whoever is going to be your rim running kind of guard or your attacker off of the pick and rolls, they're going to have even more of a lane to operate now, because what you see in college basketball is position guards position every time. You're not seeing like these cross matches that you're watching in the NBA playoffs right now. So the opposition's 5 is going to step out to VSR. So Carter Welling might end up guarding VSR out on the perimeter and then opening things up for whoever the guards are going to be, right? His defense is going to need some refinement. The blocking numbers are decent, again, similar to Malawach, but he isn't the best at ground coverage. Like, so what separates a Kamal Malawach from these guys that I've just kind of been referencing have similar numbers is that his ground coverage is insane. VSR, not necessarily the same motor, not necessarily the same ground coverage. I think he has a real shot to make some improvements, Maxwell, but yeah, I do overall worry that Coach Davis, and utmost respect to him overall, but I do feel like North Carolina has disappointed relative to expectations a lot recently. So that's kind of like the only little bit of concern that I have when it comes to VSR and his decision to commit to the Tar Heels.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that's like totally reasonable too. I don't think you're out to lunch there. Let's move over to Quinton Jones, who is playing down the road-ish for me. It's a bit of a drive to DeKalb at Northern Illinois, and is now going to be playing at St. Louis, a 6'5" guard, basically with some defensive juice. Really interesting player. Not
I
a guy.
I don't know what you think of him, because we haven't talked to him about.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, he's not a guy that we've really. I don't even know if we've talked about him like at all on the pod before. But yeah, so can you just kind of give everybody just the general overview on like who Quinton Jones is and what makes him so interesting, and then we can kind of get into the fit of him at St. Louis.
Yeah, so Quinton Jones, a guy that I kind of stumbled upon last year, playing at Northern Illinois, played at Cal Poly the year before. He's going into his 3rd year, 6'5" guard, 180 pounds. So there's a framework here that you're working with where you can kind of see him transitioning up a level consistently. Now, average almost 17 points per game, about 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, over 1 steal, almost a block per game too, Maxwell. You love that. About 45% from the floor, 36% from deep, and about 77% from the line, 2.5 turnovers and fouls per game. So there's just a lot of numbers. Boil that down. My dude can ball, right? Like he plays so well. We can get into the St. Louis fit here in a little bit, but the big thing I want to point out is that he had an assist percentage of over 23, which I think is encouraging because that speaks to him being a creator somewhat. Even if you're going to look at him predominantly as just a floor spacing guard, you can trust him to make sound decisions. He shot in the 52nd percentile in dribble jumpers. He was in the 71st percentile on non-dunk finishes at the rim. So you got a 6'5" guard who can play make, who can shoot threes, who can get to the rim and finish with craft and finesse. I think the biggest kind of hang up with this game that I see, Maxwell, that I worry about him transitioning as a lead guard that maybe St. Louis can fix, is that he doesn't necessarily handle pressure the best when handling the ball. So that kind of puts him in like the secondary, tertiary creator role, in my opinion. But I think that's why the St. Louis fit could work, because he's going to be able to work off of big men who can have plays ran through them. So a lot of strengths in his game, I think, are going to transition really well to the Pelicans. And a block percentage of 3. I just want to throw that out there too. Yeah. Like, this is like college basketball Dwayne Wade almost, just a guy who can get up and really has a lot of bounce, can contest shots, blocks more shots than he gets steals. So this is like, if you remember when the Spurs had Derek White and Dejounte Murray. Murray was the steals guard. White was the blocks guard. Jones is going to be like your blocking guard on defense, which is really fun.
Yeah, I'm always like really intrigued with this type of guard, like the guard who does the non-guard stuff, because like we've just seen so many times, like, and teams even implement it like in the regular season now. I feel like the Celtics doing the playoffs last year was like the first instance I remember of it, but the thing where like they would put a guard in the dunker spot. So it's like, all right, well, if you're going to put a guard on our guard, like now that guard's got to protect the rim. And like just like doing things like that, where it's like teams are getting so good at getting funky and making guys do stuff they're not comfortable with. That when you have a guard who can dribble a little bit, I think like I agree with you with your point about like him handling pressure, but I think like when it's one-on-one or like him on an island, it's okay.
Yep.
Like I don't
can
love
handle
it. Yeah, but he's like got some like shiftiness to him. Like I like how he changes speeds. It's just like you said, when it's like heavy pressure or like a ball screen against an aggressive coverage, like that needs work.
When he is the guy that the defense is shifting for heavily, like as a primary initiator, that's where he could pick up his dribble. He'll still make good decisions, but having that live dribble just makes you that much more dangerous. And again, he transferred. This is his third school in as many years. Maybe St. Louis kind of gets the best out of him in that regard.
But yeah, like really impressive shot diet, like a guy who can get to the basket, like takes a good amount of shots there. Took a solid volume of threes per game this year, just under 8 per 100 possessions, made 35.5% of them. Comfortable pulling up, better off the catch. Mechanics are like a little odd, where it's very like it's like he kind of shoots off his head a little bit. It's a little bit low on the release, but it's nothing bad. It's out of his hands quick, and his shot prep footwork happens really fast. So like he's one of those guys that like I don't worry too much about it because it feels like the overall like energy transfer, getting his feet set, like all of that is there. Just a really interesting player. And I think the defensive activity level in general is really good. Like just really good with his hands, really active. One of those guys who will like tip passes that are thrown right in front of his face. Like just immediately, like the hand speed is really great. I love the St. Louis fit because we've seen with Shirts, like he just has this ability to maximize guys, and put opposing teams through meat grinders. So you got a guy like Quinton Jones who can kind of like slash to the basket a little bit, dribble a little bit, shoot threes off the catch, and then be that defensive disruptor. He kind of fits everything that they like in a complementary player. He fits a lot of things that NBA teams like in a complementary player. And I think this year he gets to play alongside Avila. Maybe that allows him to be a star in his role. And then maybe next year is the year where it's like, all right, and then this could be like his team, so to speak. So I think he's really well positioned. I know like if you just look at like the raw BPM numbers, like BPM, it's kind of a team stat because it's like heavily influenced by how your team is doing. So like, I know people will be like, oh, look at his BPM at Cal Poly. And it's like, look at Kobe Sanders. You know what I mean? Like it's tough when you're on a bad team. And you could say, I get like that you could be like, well, why is he being on bad teams? I'm telling you, if you watch his game and you just look individually at how he produces in each statistical category across the board, there's a lot to work with here. And it's 6'5" in a guard, 3-level scoring, passing, defensive playmaking. There's not a whole lot more you can ask for. And I think now that we're finally going to see him in a context where winning is expected, it's going to be really interesting to see how it goes down. And I'm personally really optimistic about it.
Yeah, I think with working with Coach Bruno, what he's done with some of the guards that have come through St. Louis, I forget the lead guard that they had. I should have put it in my notes. He was a guy, not Swope. There was another guy high assist guy, very high assist guy. Metcalf liked him a lot. I can't remember his name. I'm sorry. Brand splinter. But so Coach Bruno, though, has had success with some guards. And then again, playing with Avila, I think is perfect because how many NBA teams right now have offense flow through their big men with motion guards, motion forwards, kind of playing off of them? I think this could be a perfect context for Jones to come in and really show off his off-ball skill set while also growing in that initial like creator role. I think that the marriage of player and place is why I love it so much. And again, Quinton Jones is probably more like the draft sicko mold as opposed to like these higher end transfers.
Sure.
I just want to put people on game a little bit because I feel strongly that he is going to make a name for himself transferring up into a level of competition.
Yeah, and I thought this was another one of those like really smart placement moves where it's like, I'm sure there were like high majors that wanted this kid. Like I would be stunned if there weren't. Just because it is a very plug and play game. But the fact that he picked St. Louis says something to me as far as like wanting to be competitive, wanting to play in a big role, and wanting to focus on what's best for his development, playing for one of the best coaches in the sport. Like I think it was a really, really sharp decision.
Yep.
To go with Billikens. So we're going to take one more break, and then on the other side of that, we are going to have Silus Dememory, and then who was your last one? Sorry, I'm getting this pulled up here. Silus Dememory and Max Green. More Sickos talk.
Oh, dude, I got to save it. I'm sorry.
All right, so stick with us. We'll be right back. All right, I'm going to lead us off with the Silus Dememory talk here. He is going from Georgia to UConn. I know like there's some like pretty evident flaws in Silus Dememory's game.
I'm going to need you to sell me on this one.
Yeah.
This is like my least enthusiastic take that I'm probably going to have tonight.
I love Silus Dememory. So Silus Dememory is, I think what I like about this fit the most. You know, like you see people arguing online and someone's like, go touch grass. No. Good point. Yeah. Someone like touch grass or whatever. Like UConn, like I'd watch their games last year and I'd be like, touch paint. Like someone please touch paint. Someone please get into the paint.
I love
that. For the love of God, like somebody pressure the rim a little bit. And like, I get it with like Solo Ball, Liam McNeely, Caribbean, like those guys can all shoot. But like there was just nobody reliably collapsing the defense last season. And that's what Silus Dememory is going to do. Like he is super physically strong. He's like a legit 6'5", really strong body, and he gets downhill. This past season, it was only like 21% of his shots at the rim, but he just gets into that middle area of the floor a lot. Like you can quibble with the shot diet, and I think that's fair because he took a lot of pull-up twos, took a good amount of pull-up threes, but just sort of like that bowling ball body that allows him to get inside. And even if it's not all the way to the rim, just the fact that he's able to like consistently put some level of pressure onto the paint, I think goes a long way. And he was a really good shooter off the catch last year. Made 41% of his catch and shoot threes. A majority of those were guarded. So I think with UConn, you're going to get a guy who's, and like he gets to the free throw line a ton, was the last thing I want to touch on with like the touch paint thing. For his career, free throw rate of 0.542. So really physical guard. Going to give them kind of that like hard-nosed decision maker-y guard. Like he's more like Cam Spencer than Tristan Newton in terms of the playmaking. Okay. But a guy who can still like make good decisions, get downhill, plays really physical on defense, like just bodies dudes up, really sharp in terms of his off-ball anticipation, racks up a bunch of steals that way, and a guy who can really shoot off the catch. So like whoever you've got next year, I think Terrace Reed is like the big NBA returner name to watch there. In my opinion, I'm a big Terrace guy. Terrace is going to be really high on my board to start the year. Just a heads up for people there. But I think with Dememory, like you're giving him a guy that he can hit, like if he's got to pass out of the post. But he's just giving them like a physical kind of guard that they didn't have last year. That's a little bit steadier and stronger than a guy like Hassan Diarra or some of the players that they had last year. So I think he's just going to give them that toughness element back at the guard spot that they had when it was Newton and Spencer that just was completely absent from last year's team. Because like the Aiden Mahaney thing just did not work. Like it was just
made me sad.
But I think Dememory is like a guy. The big warts here are that he's a pretty poor vertical athlete. Like he dunk numbers are not anything to write home about, but it's more of like a functional leaping thing in the half court. He's really below the rim. Made like 42% of his half court rim attempts this past year. Like that's got to change. But another part of that is like the guys who draw a lot of fouls tend to be worse finishers because they're just like playing through contact all the time. And sometimes they don't get those calls. Sure. I think he's going to be a better finisher than that. But I think just like for what he gives UConn, it makes all the sense in the world. And I think it gets him in a position where he's like got that blue blood pedigree and attention now. And they do a really good job with player development there. Like if you look at, to go back to Terrace Reed, like his first 2 years at Michigan compared to this past year, if you look at guys like Cam Spencer, you look at guys like Tristan Newton, even a guy like Hassan Diarra, like guys just get better year over year while they're there. So it's a good developmental hub. He's going to get to run a lot of NBA stuff and kind of show if he is a prospect or not.
The biggest question that I have about this fit, and it's not even necessarily a player, although I do have concerns about him just individually. The fit has me concerned a little bit too, because Solo Ball was kind of like their point guard, so to speak, but he's a shooter. Mm-hmm. And I feel like shooting is also kind of Demery's best attribute.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who the straw is in this drink.
Sure.
Like, that's my big concern.
I think that's fair. I think the two of them make for an interesting front court or backcourt. And that Solo is going to be more like your guy that's running off of actions and seeking threes. Where I think like Demery, you can almost like use him as a screener. You know what I mean? Like you can like do all sorts of physical stuff with him and get him going downhill. So I think that's the setup, is like you're using him more to pressure the paint. Whereas you're using Ball more as like your roving shooter, the way that they've used like Spencer and Caravan and guys like that over the years.
I would just be worried about nerfing either one of those two's like most like deadly attribute as like floor spacers. But I mean, you're looking at a guy who was in the 72nd percentile scoring out of pick and roll sets too. So there's obviously some form of a handle. And that player development that you're speaking to with Coach Hurley, I hope that they work on the playmaking, because I think that Demery could have a chance to be a good playmaker. And then there's also just kind of like the Georgia factor. Tough watch, man. Like they get so many players year over year, and each year they're kind of, I don't know what just happened to my webcam.
That's all right.
Sorry about that.
I still hear you, so you're fine.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, year over year they just keep getting prospects, and I just wonder like what they're doing with them.
When are the results going to come? Yeah,
when do the results come? So I don't know. I think that the coaching bump should definitely help, because again, 77th percentile scoring on his runners as well, so he can do a little bit of something whenever he is chased off at the line and working out of these pick and roll sets. So there are things in there, and he does touch the paint, although that the at rim numbers would suggest otherwise. And we've actually talked about that recently too, where I don't think that free throw rate and percentage at the rim are truly indicative of how often players are getting to the paint, because a lot of times that could be driving kicks with what we saw with like Sean Padula, right?
Sure.
So, and then defensively though, he does show some toughness and grit, which I do think that Coach Hurley is going to love. You know, he had a 3.1 steals percentage. He's shown some really fun stuff on points of attack as well. He's probably only going to be like a one position defender at the NBA level, but if he's a really good one, then that still holds water. So there are some things in there. I just think I buy him as a player more so than I do as a fit, but I also should probably give Coach Hurley a little bit of a benefit of the doubt for his ability to make stuff happen.
The other thing I just want to touch on real quick with this game that I love is like just the overall level of decisiveness. I think you see it most off the catch, where it's either like quick catch, quick shot, or like really aggressive stampede dribble, like off the catch, which I love in his game. Like when he stampedes, it's like, whoa, all right. Like, especially with like that body type, like when he goes downhill, like I just think he's one of those guys where I think the defensive anticipation, some of the stuff he's shown there, and that decisiveness, like I think there's more in terms of the mental and like processing stuff that we haven't really got to see bear itself out because of like the more complementary offensive role, where I wonder if he does get to be like a true one. Possibly. I don't know if like if that's going to be solo ball, like you said, like who knows? Like I don't really know at this point either. They might not know. I just wonder if there's like more that could be untapped in a different system, and I think it's entirely possible.
Kind of like when Hunter Salas went to Wake Forest type thing.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit more toned down on Coach Hurley, but similar like jump and roll and output. Yeah,
and I just think like he knows how to play within a team concept in a way that's really appealing to me.
He got better over the year too.
Totally, like really shot it down the stretch.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, really big fan of him. We're gonna kick it to you for Max Green, a guy who I think we might have talked about him really briefly on the podcast earlier this year at Holy Cross, 6'6".
I wouldn't put it past me. Yeah,
6'6", like guard. Like I don't like.
I wrote guard, wing, forward.
Sure, I think guard / wing. I think is fair. Definitely a wing at the college level for now, but I think there is like guard stuff where he can evolve into like a combo. He is transferring to Northwestern. My guy's a Wildcat. I'm gonna get scouted in person. It's great. But give people the rundown on Max Green, because he was one of those guys that like didn't put together numbers that were like, oh, this guy's going to be in the NBA tomorrow. But you look at those numbers and it's like, this is a guy who maybe gets the NBA eventually. Like there's some stuff here to like. Give us the Max Green rundown.
He is of all the players that we were talking about, and I love me some of these guys that we've talked about. I love me Carter Welling, Quinton Jones, Fulggeras, like Dememory. I am the most enthusiastic about Max Green, and I have to pace myself because I don't want to lose my voice, Todd McShay style.
Mm-hmm.
I stumbled upon him throughout the year, and dude, I'm telling you, he's got such a great frame to be an NBA wing. You're looking at a true freshman who was 6'6" and 182 pounds. He's in his baby deer stage. Let this guy let him work out with Nick Martinelli. Let him get a Martinelli neck and see what happens. Like this dude is going to be a beast. He's got such a complete, well-rounded offensive game at such a young age, Maxwell. As a guy who's going to be perceived as just a floor spacing wing, he ranked in the 78th percentile in scoring as a pick and roll ball handler. Mm-hmm. That number jumped up to the 82nd percentile, including passes. So you're looking at a guy who, in all of college basketball, was in the 82nd percentile at making decisions operating pick and roll sets. He was in the 84th percentile in spot up threes, where he shot over 47% in that play type. He was in the 93rd percentile in catch and shoot threes. Maxwell, he was in the 97th percentile when guarded on catch and shoot jumpers. He was in the 77th percentile on dribble jumpers, and he's going to be looked at as just like this floor spacing, milquetoast white dude playing at Northwestern. But my man can do so much. He was also, as a baby deer freshman, as the best player on Holy Cross, was in the 50th percentile at the rim. He shot 57.3% at the rim and made all 4 of his only half court dunk attempts. Mm-hmm. Having this size and scoring, Maxwell, is incredible. He can move the ball. He had a 20.3 assist percentage on a usage rate of 26.4, again, as a freshman. Turnover percentage of just 18.4. He led his entire team in assist. He's a low-risk defender, right, which yielded some of these lower percentages. If you go through and watch the tape, he knows where to be. He's learning. He knows where to be. This is where I think the transition up to Northwestern is going to help him, particularly on the defensive end. He did rebound well. He had an offensive rebound percentage of 3.7 and a defensive rebounding percentage of 15.6. What I really love, why I wanted to bring him up, not is he just like a phenomenal individual player, but now, Maxwell, we have the potential. I know that there's waivers and stuff that got to get approved, but there's a potential that Northwestern can have a 2 through 4 lineup of him, Nick Martinelli, and Brooks Barnhizer. Mm-hmm. And that could be a phenomenal lineup. Like you talk about floor spacing, creation, him playing off of vets, gleaning from them, getting stronger in a really strong D1 school at a really strong conference. Maxwell, like, talk me off this ledge because Max Green, I might have him like borderline first round talent. I got to do my homework. I gotta do my homework. But seriously, dude, 6'6" can do all of those things as the focal point. Like,
I think,
what am I missing?
Yeah, for me, I think he's more of like a guy that gets there eventually. Like, I love the shot, like you mentioned, like over 10 threes per 100 possessions, 38%, really pure, concise mechanics, really good assist rate for a freshman, took on a massive usage rate. The other thing I think it's worth mentioning is like Patriot League guys, for whatever reason, have just like scaled well. Like whether we're talking like Santi Aldama or like Cam Spencer, like going to UConn and like being okay, like seems to be a league that for whatever reason, like turns out guys that are able to carry over their success. I worry a little bit about some of the half court functionality of his game where like he was really good operating pick and rolls, but like his spot up 2 numbers were bad. Like it just doesn't seem like when you run him off the line, like that's just not there yet. And I know he took on a big role, but like the defensive, like steal and block rates for a guy that were in a small conference, it's just like, I just need to see more. Like that's too low for me. Like I need to see that bear itself out at Northwestern. With that being said, I think like Northwestern is in a really interesting predicament where like there's going to be minutes available. So if you look at the wings here, You're going to get Trey Singleton in, who's a freshman, but you've got Nick Martinelli. Assuming Barnheiser does not get the waiver, which would be my gut instinct at this point. You've got Martinelli, Justin Mullins, like they didn't really play a whole lot last year. Siervino, who's like a local wing, who's like a solid player. Like there's just nobody that like screams, I need playing time right now. And just like the departure of guys like Jalen Leach, who give you a little bit of floor spacing, like just having a guy who can shoot off the catch at 6'6" and reliably make decisions, I think on that team gets him on the court. And it's going to give him the chance to like rep things out and see who can be defensively in a smaller role. And then when it's time for you to take on a bigger role in a couple of years, like, can you do both? We'll see. I'm really interested in him. I think the 4 half-court dunks, like you mentioned, is like a really interesting element of his game where like he doesn't quite have that like off the line consistency yet. But if you're posting 4 dunks in the half court, like you clearly can do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's in there. It's not like we're talking about a guy who like can't get up off 1 foot or has like the worst gather footwork you've ever seen. Like it's doable. I just need to see a little bit more connective tissue, and I need to be more convinced that he's going to be able to hold up his end of the bargain defensively. But I think anytime you've got guys that are that big, that shoot, that have some skill, it's worth getting an eye on them sooner rather than later for sure.
Yeah, probably getting over it. Like I said, I need to calm down with him. I'm going to dump my bottle of water on my head. I get real steamy.
Do you like him better, or do you like Blake Harper better, who just committed to Creighton?
Yeah, that was going to be a name that I brought up later because that was like just a couple hours before we started the show.
Yeah, because like I just like Harper because he's just like bulkier. Like another guy where it's like if you're gonna
that's tough.
It's like both those guys just posted bad defensive counting numbers in leagues that aren't that athletic. So it's like I don't know about scalability on defense there, but I think with Blake Harper, it's like well at least he's 6'8". Like you know what I mean? Like it's
he's got this. He's got the size advantage, but I think Green showed more overall offensive athletic completeness.
Juice. Sure.
Well, just like completeness in his game. I mean, Blake, I felt like could do a couple things, but I just think Green, he could run like he ran a school's offense essentially. You know, like he ran the offense. He wasn't just like a play finisher, but like he showed the propensity to be able to organize an entire team. I think that's worth accounting for. I do think though that like sometimes, and I'm the stupid person that says sometimes I think we overrank intelligence. So, you know, sometimes Harper, we do have to put the athletic traits. Like you got to draft traits too. You know?
Yeah. And with Harper, it's like he owned like the 3-point volume is lower. Like he made a ton of them and was like really good at the free throw line. It was just a matter of like he could get to the rim whenever he wanted in the MEAC. And I like high foul rate guys too. Like I just think it's a good indicator for scalability that it's like you were able to just get where you wanted and make teams foul you. So like I lean more toward a Blake Harper among like that like loose archetype of like lower.
I don't blame you at all. Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting one, and I think the fit again is really good for Green because it's like Northwestern just needs dudes like that. Like they're just really short on them after the guys they graduated of like high field guy that's not a total shrimp that can shoot. So
there were a lot of schools that wanted him too. Like this kid's from Kentucky. He's not from you know that region, so he could have been to a bunch of different places. But Dr. Crap in the chat said
our guy Dr. Crap.
Yeah, my favorite
doctor. Lady. Dr. Crap could be a lady.
Yeah, that's why I just say
doctor for the misogyny. Yeah.
Doctor, just a couple of doctors. But yeah, I think Creighton also got Owen Freeman. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah.
Which another player that I'm just like super intrigued to see.
Bizarre guy. Like
very bizarre.
Like all the numbers are like this should be an NBA guy, and every time I watch him, I'm like, is he like 6'8"? Like every time I watch him, I'm like, can this guy
so
jump?
Thin.
Like and then like he blocks a ton of shots, but they're all like blocks where he doesn't leave the floor, and it's like I guess that's good, but
and who's their shooter returning from last year? Who am I thinking of?
Jackson McAndrew.
Dude, I'm excited for that guy too.
Yeah,
that's why I'm team. Like, how does I see Green translating to Northwestern more easily than I see Harper translating to.
So here was my Blake Harper thought that I had today.
Okay,
this is what I'm doing. You know, sure, I'm thinking about Blake Harper.
Cool.
If Blake Harper like isn't what like his biggest optimist like think he could be, Could he just be Jemiah Neal, who we just saw at Portsmouth, where it's like, that's a big guy that can like really handle the ball and make some good decisions.
Hope he's better than Jemiah Neal.
I think he will be.
In Portsmouth, yeah.
But like, that's what I'm saying is like Jemiah Neal like still ultimately got a Portsmouth invite. It's like, I think Blake Harper could at least be that as far as just like big dude who knows how to play and like get to his spots.
Yeah. I don't know.
All right, I
just draw little things in my notebooks of like hearts with mine and Max Green's initials in them sometimes when I'm forced.
I've got mine with Blake Harper. It's fine. We all like different things. Any other like big names kind of jump to mind for you, transfer portal?
Oh man. I don't know why, but I'm drawing a complete blank. Why don't you hit me with some while I fire up the old?
Okay, so I'm just gonna pull up Bartorvik and I'm just gonna do the top 5 teams real quick. Okay. What do we think of Ade Mara at Michigan?
That's interesting, especially with the Oxel Lindenborg, and they also added who's the other forward that they got? Morez Johnson.
Yes, who can like be the big guy that actually plays for the game if Ade Mara still can't get up and down the court without needing to be subbed out. Mara is like so frustrating.
Imagine Yaxel comes back though.
Like, oh yeah, then you're cooking with gas.
Well, you are, but if I'm Dusty May and I'm running this team, I'm like, Mara, you're coming off the bench and I'm running Morez and Yaxel.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
That's my lineup.
Totally. Because Morez can like rim run, crash, and operate out of the dunker while Yaxel's like running actions at the top of the key. Like you've got double rim protection that way. Like I know that Ade Mara, especially among like analytically inclined people, like he has fans. Like I've never been like less convinced of a guy being able to play for 20 minutes. Like he is so big. Everything around the basket on both ends of the court feels so easy for him. He has these moments where he leverages his passing in like length and like in the angles that he can create so well. He just gets tired so easily.
Yes.
That like, I just can't sell myself on the vision of like him getting up and down an NBA court.
Yeah.
Could be wrong. But that's
I think you can maybe even run all 3 with Yax, like trying to show that he can do more perimeter oriented stuff. I don't know. Here's one that I really want to get your opinion on.
Yeah.
Because this dude was like a trailblazer saying that he was going to commit to 2 years of college basketball so he can play in the NBA, transferred from Arizona State to Kentucky.
Yeah.
Jaden, help me with the last name. Quaintance?
Yeah.
Quaintance, yeah.
This is an interesting
What do we think about this? This is a big one.
Yes, and it's fascinating because so he was awesome his freshman year. Like he was just absolutely blocking everything in sight. The ground coverage is outrageous. Still, like, not sure what to make of him offensively. Like some moments of ball skills, not a lot. Can't shoot, under 50% from the free throw line, under 20% from 3. I think Kentucky is an interesting fit and that it's probably going to allow him to make a lot of decisions on the ball just based on how
Amari Williams style.
Yeah. That like, I'm thinking if nothing else, he can sort of audition to like position himself well for if the shot does not come around at all. So it's like, look, I can really defend. And if you put me in an NBA style offense, I can make some good passing decisions and I'm not going to ruin everything. There's a lot of competition there. You're going to have Malachi Moreno, who's just in the McDonald's game. You're going to have Brandon Garrison. You're going to have Mohamed Diabate, who like I absolutely adore, who's not like a traditional big man, but he is more like interior oriented. You're going to have Cam Williams, who can play at the 4. So like
the kid again, from Mega situation, Andrej
Jelovic or whatever.
Jelovic,
yeah. Like there's so much competition that like there is a world where this maybe gets a little bit weird for him, but from
kind of drowning out talent, I feel like.
Yes, and that's why I was happy like when Fulggeras like kind of scratched them off his list because I was like, "There's too much going on here." Because I felt that way about Diabate, who I adore.
Cedric Howard apparently is. Well, no, I'm sorry, he's considering Bama and
just cut them. Yeah, so I think that's an interesting one that could have some upside and also some like gnarly downside.
Okay, let's stay in state because there's 3 guards that all committed to Louisville: Ryan Conwell, Isaac McNeely. And then everybody's favorite underdog, Adrian Woolley, coming in from Kennesaw.
Yeah.
They're going to be a wagon. They're going to have a 3-guard lineup that you don't want to mess with. I mean,
no.
McNeely has a strap. Conwell has a strap. what we saw from Adrian Woolley this year as a low major playmaker is just there was no short
fruit.
Yes,
that he's just going to be able to gobble up. Like a lot of the stuff that he does wrong, I'm like, guys, fix that all the time. Like I really like his game.
What do we think about Louisville grabbing all three of those dudes?
It's interesting. I don't know who comes off the bench. I don't know who starts. I don't know if they play all three because they've got that freshman coming in too.
Yeah, that's true. Michael
Brown. Is that right?
Yeah,
I'm
Michael
so bad
Brown.
with names,
yeah.
but that kid can hoop.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know who comes off the bench. My gut is like maybe Woolley is the guy that comes off the bench just because he's like the least experienced of those guys, and like you probably promised that freshman kid a lot. I don't know. That's interesting. Jacoby Gillespie to Tennessee. That's what I was going to bring up as an honorable mention. Love that one.
My cousin.
How they play through their guards. Yep. It's a system where like they play through their guards a lot. Like he's going to get to have the ball a ton. He's still defensive oriented in the way that they like a Zakai Ziegler type to be, but he's bigger than Zakai. He's got more offensive juice. He's a better shooter. Like, love that one.
He's going to get touches. He's going to get plenty of touches. Can I bring up, I didn't mention this in my piece that I dropped last week where it's like moves I like, moves I question, because I still don't know how I feel about Donovan Dent to UCLA. Because I like Donovan Dent. I don't like UCLA. I don't like UCLA. I believe they got the two quarterbacks from Tennessee and Arkansas transferred over to their football program. Maybe they're going to be on the team. The Iamala or whatever their names are.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that guy. So they've got Sky Clark still. That's like a blasphemous name. Tyler Bilodeau is still listed? That can't be right. Eric Daly. Xavier Booker?
Yeah, Xavier Booker came in. Yeah,
Xavier Booker,
former Michigan State prospect.
Jamar Brown, I like. He's kind of like a tough dude that shoots threes and plays defense and rebounds a lot.
Bilodeau's kind of fun. He was interesting to watch throughout the year. But again, like I really wanted Dent to go to. I wish he would have went to like a St. John's. I think he would have been a perfect St. John's guard.
I was just gonna say,
they were looking.
Does this tempo fit him? With like
that's what I'm saying.
And Eric Daly, like this just feels like a team that's like a little slow for what he likes.
Don't like them. I don't know if I like the move, but I also am never going to doubt Donovan Dent. So there's that, but I don't know how I felt about it. I want to bounce that off of you since we're doing lightning.
That's kind of weird. I like off the top of my head, I don't love it. What do we think of USC and like the 8 power forward setup that they got going on there?
USC
that's the other weird one where it's like Ezra Asar, Keontae Jones, Jacob Coffey, Amarion Dickerson, Gabe Dine,
Keontae,
like
Jones
that is way too much. Like,
Sun.
That's way too much. Like power.
I wrote about. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say like if Elijah Arenas like makes a recovery and is okay, which like prayers up for him in that kind of situation.
That was
scary. And then you've got Rodney Rice. Like then this makes a lot more sense if it's those two there, and then like Keontae Jones is like a third guard. But otherwise, I think this roster construction can get really weird.
I think so too. Remember when Arkansas, my team, was supposed to be the losers because the Must Bus left town to go play in California, and we were stuck with old stinky Calipari. Remember when that was a storyline? Yeah, that USC is just they are the school. They're kind of like the antithesis of what the spirit of this show was about, where we're talking about like fits that we love. I feel like they're just a talent grab school, and they don't have we just saw it with guys like St. Thomas, Adama Alpha Ball, Desmond Claude, who just is transferring out. Because it doesn't feel like they have a plan for these dudes. And a lot of these guys, like St. Thomas was really good in Portsmouth. So was Ball, but you can't have all these dudes who occupy the same spaces on the court together just because you're throwing them a couple million in Southern California, And
then real quick, I just want to touch on real quick that I love Xavier Lee to Florida is like ideal.
I was going to bring that up too.
Replacement. I also thought like Baylor as a team did a really nice job. Where like,
see, I didn't like the Rataj choice.
Oh, I did because like they just never have a forward. Like they just never have. Like,
that's the thing. On that they roster. Don't play through the forwards ever.
But I think they're gonna have to this year because it's like JJ White and Agbim, who's just like he can like play make a little bit, but he's more of a shooter. So like Ratai's still going to get more of the playmaking reps, and like it still gives Baylor an element that they've been lacking. Same with Daniel Skillings. Like I think those two guys are going to be really interesting there. And like Bodo is like perfect. Cause like they don't like their bigs to touch the ball a lot. Like just having competent forward play, but still having like that guard shooter at Agbim. Like I think this roster construction makes a lot of sense. And then like my sicko like portal team that I like is Virginia Tech.
Okay.
They got longtime Corey favorite Imani Hansberry.
Yes.
Who I think is like another one of those guys where it's like, I know the numbers aren't good, but I'm convinced he's going to shoot. Like I'm convinced he's a better passer than the numbers indicate. And he's big. They still have Jaden Shute, who's like a local kid who played at Yorkville Christian, like down the road from me. Really good shooter.
He was at Duke before too, right? Was
yes,
he not?
redshirted and then like didn't really play. Now he's going to be junior. They've got Toby Lawal, who is like a blast to watch, like above the rim finisher who can dunk a lot. And then they got Isaiah Pasha, who's like this paint touch guard that I'm like really into. And I think with like those four, that's like a really exciting starting point. I don't know their bigs that well, but I think just like Hansberry, Shute, Lawal, Pasha is like a nice mix of like inside out skill, rim pressure, athleticism. Like I think that's like a sneaky fun team that is going to be better than people think.
Yeah, I would throw out one sleepers like sneaky sicko one is Brandon Macklin transferred to go play at DePaul. Yeah, I like him a lot, playing alongside former Razorback Layden Blocker. So I think that you are positioned well geographically to maybe watch a DePaul versus Northwestern and just revel in the fact that you're watching some of my favorite prospects that I'm probably not going to get to watch this year. So that'll be fun for you. But yeah, I like the DePaul fit with Macklin. He was phenomenal scorer this past season. I'm interested to keep tabs on him.
I also think like Lane Blocker's Loki still got some juice. Like I know like that's one of those guys who was like
never going to give up
on RSCI a few years ago. Like people gave up on. Yep. He was like super injured to start the year, and now he's over that and like shot over 33% from three, which isn't great, but it's workable. Like was setting the table well. Like the defensive activity is all still there. Obviously, like huge uphill battle anytime we're talking about a 6'2" guard, but like Blocker was good every time I watched that team last year. Like I think he is good. Yeah, so that'll do it. Let's wrap it up. What have you got in the works this week?
Well, as I spoiled earlier, Maxwell, I'm working on a Victor Locken piece. I'm titling it Eat Your Vegetables because I have been so enthralled with the NFL draft throughout this process. And I think, and I'll write about this in the piece too, Maxwell, but I think it's funny how we talk about football and basketball players so differently, even though there are some shared similarities. Like when we talk about space creation for a guard in basketball, we say that a player in the NFL can get past a guy in a phone booth. And those are two different ways to describe what players can do, but they both serve the same descriptive purpose. So Eat Your Vegetables was something that I spell out in detail in the piece. I compare Victor Locken to a potato. You'll have to go over to NoCeilingsNBA.com to read exactly how he compares to a potato. But yeah, that's going to be going up on the piece, Maxwell. NoCeilingsNBA.com for our written work.
Yeah, and then tomorrow, well, today, most likely, by the time you're listening to this, I'll have a piece that is up on statistical red flags and guys who beat them. I think it's like really
I can't wait for that piece.
Anytime
I'm so excited
of like, oh yeah, this guy's like got a statistical red flag. It's this, and like sometimes guys overcome those. And like I just looked at a couple of them. Like this might be something that turns into a series. But just looking at some common through lines and like, okay, guards that are low dunk guards, like the guards that dunk one or less time that stuck in the NBA. Who were they? What do they have in common? Like, what am I looking for if that's an issue? What about forwards who can't shoot or wings that had low stock numbers? Like what is the through line there? So yeah, it was just a fun kind of different piece to write, more of a scouting philosophy data thing. So I had a lot of fun writing it. So go check that out. But yeah, that'll do it for this week. Follow Stephen at Stephen G Hoops. Follow me at Boundboards. And that'll do it for this week. We'll see you next week, everybody.
Much love, y'all.
All right.